Okay, welcome back to the Getting to Know You videos. So last video we kind of covered a brief introduction to GitHub and how it works in setting up a remote repository. But what I didn't really do is explain what I was doing when I did Git Push. Now I was going to squeeze Git Push, Git Fetch, and Git Pull all into one tutorial, but actually I figured they each deserve their own video. So let's talk about Git Push. So we've been talking about this remote repository setup where every one of these repositories, again, can interact with each other, right? As soon as you have a Git remote listed, then you can interact with it, right? So here, remember, we set up a Git remote by doing Git remote add. And then if we looked at the Git remote -v for verbose, we could see that we have a reference to the GitHub repository, and we've named it origin, okay? But then what I did next was I did a Git push -u origin master, and I didn't really explain what this was doing. So let's talk about Git push, because it's a pretty big concept in itself. Okay, so the idea of Git push is you're basically saying from your local repository to your remote repository, okay? You're basically saying in that transfer direction, you're basically saying, here are all my commits for my branches. Now, my branches. This is where Git push doesn't get confusing, but if you don't know what it's doing, then it does get confusing. Okay, so what does my branches encompass? What my branches means is push all the commits for all matching branches. Okay? So if I were to do just a Git push origin, okay, it's only going to push all the commits, okay? In other words, all the commits that I have that don't exist on the remote repository, it's going to give those commits to the remote repository for only matching branches. That means that for any branch that I have that exists on the remote repository as well, okay? So if I take a look at our setup here, and again, we're only really interacting with GitHub, so I'm going to get rid of the other ones here. So if we look at our two repositories here, and we look at the remote, right? So we have a pointer from our local repository to GitHub, and we've named it origin, right? So the way we're going to interact with the GitHub repository is always by the word origin, okay? Now let's look at the branches that local has, right? So we have the master branch, the red feature branch, the green feature branch, and the blue feature branch, right? And you can check that over here, right? You can do a git branch, as you should know by now, right? We have blue feature, green feature, red feature, and the master branch, right? And when we started out, GitHub had no branches, okay? So if at this point we were to do a simple git push origin, in fact, nothing would be updated because there's no matching branches. GitHub has no matching branches that match these guys, okay? So when you do a simple git push, okay, with the remote repository name, okay, this will only do all matching branches, okay, no matching branches sitting on there. But how do you get one of your branches to exist on the GitHub account so you will have matching branches? That's where you have to specify the branch name, okay? So for the very first time you want to initialize a branch on your remote repository, and in this case GitHub, you have to explicitly specify that branch name. So that's why the very first time we did this, we did git push origin master. Again, I can't really remember what the -u does. I'll look it up, I promise, at some point. So what this is saying is, because you don't have the master branch, okay, like because the origin doesn't have the master branch, I'm going to specify pushing that up, okay? You have to explicitly specify branches that don't exist on there, okay? So when I do a git push origin master, what that does is it actually creates a master branch on the GitHub, okay? Now, because GitHub has a matching branch to my local branch, when I do a git push, right, master falls into this category of all matching branches. So it's going to update the master branch of GitHub, okay, and we'll show you that right now. Okay, so if we do, let's do something on the master branch here. What files do we have? README. Okay, so let's change README. All right. So let's say changing master branch. Okay, I've changed the master branch, and I'm going to do my usual commits. So git add, git. Let's just take a look where we are here. Okay. Dot project and dot readme were added. So we're going to do a git. Actually, I don't want that project in there, so let's just reset that one. And the only reason I know how to do this is, again, fancy git instructions right there. Okay, so readme.txt has been updated, so let's commit that. Added changes to readme. All right, and so that's committed on the master. So if I look at the git log, there, it changes the master. It's right there. All right. So now there's some changes, there's some commits sitting on this master branch on the local that have not been pushed up to GitHub yet, right? In fact, if I go to GitHub and I look at the master branch and I look at the README file, you see that that change hasn't been pushed up here yet, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a git push origin. So I'm going to say push from my local repository to the origin all the commits for all the matching branches. So the matching branches include master in this case, right? So I don't have to specify master. So I'm going to hit enter. And look at that. It actually showed you what branches it's going to push from my master to the GitHub master. Okay? So let's take a look at this again. On GitHub, readme.txt, and there's the changes. Okay? So really quick recap again. Git push the remote name. If you don't specify a branch, it's going to push all commits for all matching branches. If you want to upload a new branch, you push a new branch to that repository, you have to explicitly specify it. So let's try that again. Let's try it with the green feature, okay? So we're going to do a git push origin. And now because green feature doesn't exist on GitHub, let's put it on there. Green feature. All right. So now the green feature is sitting on GitHub. Okay. Actually, let me do that. I actually did the diagram for the red feature, so it would have looked fancier like this, but you get the idea, right? So now green feature is actually sitting on GitHub. So if I refresh GitHub, I can see I have both my master branch and my green feature branch sitting there. Okay. So let's make some changes on the green feature branch. What branch are we sitting on? We're sitting on master, so let's switch over to the green feature branch. And let's make some changes. All right. Green feature changes. All right. So now when we do a git push for origin, okay, this is going to update all our matching branches. Okay, let's can this diagram because this diagram is not accurate because we did the master on the green feature, not the red feature. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Let's move to here. All right, so local remote. So sitting on local, we have master, we have green feature, we have red feature, and we have blue feature. Okay. Sitting on remote, we recently pushed master, and we recently pushed green feature. So now, when I do a simple git push origin, it's going to update all those branches, okay? Just the matching ones. There's no remote has no idea about red and no idea about blue. Okay. Everything apparently is updated already, so I didn't do that. Oh, I didn't actually check in my green feature, so let's do that. Git add readme, git commit, green feature changes. Okay, and now we do a git push origin. And you see, it actually updated my green feature branch. Now you may be wondering, why didn't it list master? If what I'm saying is true, it's going to update the master branch as well, right? It updates everything where there's matching branches, right? So the master branch and the green feature branch. Well, the beautiful thing about Git is smart enough to realize if those are up to date already. We actually hadn't made any changes on master since our last push, so it doesn't need to update master. And in fact, if I run git push origin again, you'll see it's smart enough to know not to need to update anything, right? Everything's up to date. So let's see a case where actually both branches are updated, okay, locally. So we're still on the green branch here, right? We're still sitting on the green feature branch here. So let's change something here again. More green feature changes. We'll commit that. Okay, and then let's switch over to the master branch. And let's make some changes there as well. Okay, we will add the README and we'll commit it. All right, so essentially what I'm sitting in is that I have some changes I've made on the master branch locally, and I've had some changes that I made on the green feature branch locally. Now I want to push those to the remote repository, in this case GitHub. So I'll do git push origin. Okay, and you'll see just like that, both branches were updated, green feature and master. Okay, so the take-home message here about git push is that it's basically giving you all the latest commits from the local to the remote repository for all matching branches. For non-matching branches, you have to explicitly push them, okay? Now the reason Git does this is you may not want to push all your branches up to the remote repository, right? Maybe you have some working branches that you want to do locally, and then you merge them into a master branch and push the master branch up, right? That might be the case, right? So it doesn't explicitly think that you're going to push all the branches up there, all right? And if you want to see all those changes, again, you can see this. I'm on the master code branch right now. So if I look at the README file, okay, there's my master changes. And if I look at the green feature branch, and I look at the README file there, there's all the green feature changes. Okay? So without you forgetting all the knowledge you learned about branching and merging and all this stuff like that, all this has to do is push is basically synchronizing from local to remote all the commits of the matching branches. Okay? Now, one last thing before we end this video about git push is the magical word origin. So up to now I've shown you how you can do git push, the name of the remote, and the branch name, right? Master, red feature, whatever, right? Now I've shown you what happens when you take away the branch, right? This will update all matching branches. Now, what about if you take away the word origin and you just do a git push? Well, what git push does is it assumes the remote repository that you're going to use is the one called origin. All right? That's why we named GitHub origin. All right? If we name this anything else than origin, git push is not going to work. Git push is looking for that remote name origin. Okay? So if we called it, GitHub repo, or we called it something else, it wouldn't actually work. All right? So git push is looking for a very specific repository, remote repository called origin. Okay? So, really quick recap. We talked about what git push does, which is basically updating all your commits for all your matching branches. Okay? And to get a matching branch onto your remote server, you just explicitly specify the name of the branch. That's git push.